Thousands of people descend on to Washington, D.C. to protest to see the president that they want put in. And, of course, the news media says, oh, but the numbers. So we'll talk a bit about that. Bernie Sanders says he knows nobody who wants to defund the police. Mainstream media continues to try to push you into the narrative that Joe Biden is going to be your next president. So we'll discuss whether or not he will be or not. And Chancellor Whitmer proves that she is the dictator that she always wanted to grow up to be. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Oh, it's a Monday morning in Wisconsin. The sound of somebody scraping a windshield outside is great. It's one of the things that I love about living here because it's always just a little bit cool here. Even when it gets warm. It's still warmer in places like Florida. It's a great day, but not in election time because they still want to fight over this once. And I mean, that's a good thing in and of itself because we're actually going to get an answer out of this because God knows we haven't. People just roll over and accept the results and don't ask questions and don't look too close at what's going on here. And we're going to start the day with a video talking about just that. But before we get to anything that we have to talk about today, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We carry great shows such as The Generational Gap, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The Daily Ignoramus, The R-Rated Conservative, and The Freckles and Brit Show. Freckles and Brit just had Austin Peterson on, which means I'm hoping that the rest of us get Austin Peterson on because I'm telling you right now, that is one interview that I would definitely be looking forward to. And I mean, most of you who've been with the audience for quite a while already know, but Austin Peterson's girlfriend has been on the show back when it was Ed's World 3 times. So I got a couple of ins. Our paths have never crossed, and I do think that's a crime. So hopefully that'll be changing up in the near future. So come on over to freedomscoop.com, pick up some of our swag, and help us support great creators and get more great interviews like the one from Austin Peterson. All right, let's look at the numbers for the week here. On Friday, it looks like we had a pretty steady climb throughout the day, 1.37% up. And it looks like the futures are not going to disappoint either because yet another vaccine is coming out and saying, oh yeah, we're going to fix the whole world again because now it looks like Biden's winning again. So we'll see what's going on with that here, starting with Fox News. Fox Business, let me rephrase that. Autoplaying, because that's what they do. Shut that up here. Dow jumps 500 points. Moderna's CEO sees COVID-19 vaccine approval early 2021. Ironically, if the news media gets their way, right after Joe Biden takes his inaugural address. Weird how that works. From Chris Ciaccia. Stock futures jumped after Moderna announced its COVID-19 vaccine was 94.5% effective in patients participating in its phase 3 trials as part of the country, including Oregon and New Mexico, announced new stay-at-home measures to curb the spread of the virus. Moderna's CEO Stephanie Bancel told Fox Business the vaccine could see FDA approval in the next several weeks to months. The emergency use approval, I think, could happen in December. And then, I think, in Q1, the first quarter, to have full approval, where every American who wants a vaccine, that is 18 years of age, can get access to the vaccine, said Bancel during an appearance on Mornings with Maria on Monday. Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures rose 500 points or 1.7%, while the S&P 500 tacked on 1%. The tech-heavy NASDAQ Composite was lower by 0.3% as of 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Moderna shares rose more than 15% because everyone's going to be running out for this vaccine. We're going to be saved. In early trading, putting other vaccine makers in the spotlight for investors again after Pfizer and its German partner BioNTech announced that its coronavirus vaccine proved 90% effective in late-stage trials. Cases of COVID-19 have surged around the U.S. because everyone was standing shoulder to motherfucking shoulder in every city across America on the Saturday that the AP and CNN said, oh, Biden wins, don't look any closer. adding close to 1 million cases over the past week, according to data compiled by Johns Hopkins University. The U.S. has now topped 11 million cases, the most on the planet. The most testing on the planet, too, by the way, but, who am I to judge? New York's manufacturing index came in weaker than expected, with a reading of 6.3 compared to expectations of 12.8 for the month of November. Investors will build on a robust week for U.S. stocks after the S&P 500 hit a fresh record, and the Russell 2000, a benchmark of domestic-focused companies, also hit a record on Friday, passing levels not seen since August of 2018. For the week, the Dow tacked on about 4%, the S&P over 2%, while NASDAQ slipped 0.5%. This came as global investors pumped a record amount of money into equity funds. So that's what they're seeing off the numbers for this here. We'll talk a bit about SpaceX later on in the show here, but let's see what CNBC has to say about the same thing. Dow futures jump 500 points as Moderna says it has a highly effective COVID vaccine as well. From Fred Imbert. U.S. stock futures jumped Monday after Moderna said preliminary trial data showed its coronavirus vaccine was more than 94% effective. The promising announcement makes the Massachusetts-based biotech firm the second drug maker to say it has a potentially effective vaccine. Similar trials last week from Pfizer and BioNTech drove investors into underperforming names dependent on a vaccine reopening the economy. The company said at the time that their candidate was more than 90% effective in preventing COVID-19 among participants. Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures added 500 points or 1.7%. The move implied an opening gain of about 500 points. The S&P 500 futures rose 1.1% and NASDAQ 100 futures slipped 0.15%. The Dow is just shy of 72 points, shy of a record close. Last week, the Dow climbed 4% for its second straight positive week. The S&P 500 posted a record closing high on Friday and notched a one-week gain of 2.2%. The NASDAQ lagged, however, sliding 0.6%. The moves came as traders piled into beaten-down value names at the expense of high-flying growth stocks amid positive vaccine news. The iShares Russell 1000 Value Exchange-Traded Fund rallied 5.7% last week, while its growth counterpart, the iShares Russell 1000 Growth ETF, slid 1.2%. And at this point, we're just going into a lot of numbers. Numbers are boring here, but it looks like right now everything is up and is going to continue to go up because the vaccine. And as much as the media doesn't want to get the vaccine out there until they are concrete proving that Joe Biden is the winner, which they're all trying to come out and say that they are at this point, but until it is concretely proven and all the lawsuits are done and all the electors are put into place, they don't want that vaccine to get out there, and I don't think the vaccine makers are listening. So we will see what happens off of this here, what happens to the numbers, and what comes off of this here. But there's going to be some vaccine news coming up here later in the show as well. All right, let's get into the news, starting with the biggest news of the day. Barack Obama is highly conceited. Barack Obama tells Scott Pelley Republicans who go along with the president's claims of election fraud put democracy on a dangerous path. After he spent 4 years saying that it was Russia, it was absolutely Russia, and don't question this ever again. Let's hear what the former president had to say. Oh, put the cursor on the right window. There we go.
What are these false claims of widespread election fraud doing to our country right now?
They appear to be motivated in part because the president doesn't like to lose and never admits loss. I'm more troubled by the fact that other Republican officials who clearly know better are going along with this, are humoring him in this fashion. It is one more step in delegitimizing not just the incoming Biden administration, but democracy generally. And that's a dangerous path.
What are these false claims of?
There you are, folks. Former President Barack Hussein Obama. Well, if I'm the one that's questioning the election integrity, then it's a good thing. And I mean, it was Hillary's turn. It was her turn to win. I endorsed her. I appointed her, and I said in the Correspondents' Dinner, Donald Trump is not going to be president, and I hate to be wrong. And then, now that Trump is questioning it, well within his legal purview, by the way, because he hasn't conceded yet. Oh well, it's obviously he's undermining democracy, and I mean democracy is our most core tenet, and hey, take that teleprompter. It's not telling me what to say again. The people that are going along with it, they're undermining democracy too. So that is what our former president has to say about all the fun stuff that's going on here. Now let's get into some of the fun stuff going on. Reading from NPR, because that's how they read it over here. Trump supporters together for Million MAGA March. Can you imagine actually having to read like that all day? I can barely get through the headline. And I just lost my headphones, so I hope we don't have any more video to listen to off of this. But can you imagine listening to that all day, just like this, and having to speak like this all day? Why do they force them to do this like that? You've got to wonder why it is that they want their listeners to drive off the road. All right. From Hannah Allen. Groups supporting President Trump plan to converge on Washington, D.C. today for a rally billed as the Million MAGA March. It's unclear how many people will actually turn out. Let me get the chat back up here, just in case you guys can't hear me. So, a transcript off of this here, because this was a radio broadcast, but of course they will ding me for copyright if I try to play it. So let's see what they had to say here. Supporters of President Trump are rallying in Washington, D.C. today. They call the event the Million MAGA March. Hundreds of people gathered near the White House to protest the presidential election results and supporting the president's baseless claims that he, and not Joe Biden, has won the election. NPR's Hannah Allen is covering the rally. Hannah, thanks so much for being with us. Hi there. What are you seeing? Who's there? What are they saying? Yeah, well, I'm here in Freedom Plaza, just a few blocks away from the White House, and I don't know, the mic, if you'll be able to hear the ruckus. There's a few hundred people in there, all supporters of President Trump under a variety of different banners. I guess sort of the umbrella, sort of unifying message is the Stop the Steal mantra, belief that the election was rigged. Hannah? Yes. Okay, we're finding a little hard to hear you, just to make certain if you can talk directly to the speaker if you can. Sure. Yeah, this is just people masturbating each other on camera. Jeffrey Tubining each other, if you will. Simon says, do you see any counter-protesters? No, not where I am. I know that there are planned counter-protests, but really, where I am, this is just Trump supporters. I mean, law enforcement are stationed there. There are several streets closed off. I mean, the goal is to keep those sorts of groups, separate. And so they're, lessen the potential for clash. So no, where I am, it's pretty festive. It's definitely all sort of Trump supporters, a mixed of kind of, ordinary families, bringing their children, their flags, etc. Yeah. And then you have the fringe groups, The Proud Boys are here. They're standing back and standing by. Are here. I saw some white nationalists, some Confederate flags, and, QAnon slogans as well. The conspiracy theory QAnon. So it's kind of the same mix that we've seen at lockdown protests throughout the summer. And, they've activated those same channels, and they're getting people out for this. And that's where I want to cut that off of this here. So, as most of you know at this point, thousands upon thousands of people descended on Washington, D.C. to air their grievances with the way that the election is going. And the way that they do believe that it's rigged. And the fact that the mainstream media, of course, is trying to tell you, look the other way, don't look over here, there's nothing to see over here. All dangerous things, by the way, and if this was going in the other direction, we would definitely be encouraged to look into this closer and closer and closer. As I've always said, if ever you want to see what the reality of the story is, switch the political parties if it's political news. If it's something that the Democrats are criticizing Republicans for, switch the parties and see if the Democrats would still be criticizing it if it was their own party doing it. But of course, it's not, and that's not what it's going to be here. And Kevin Sorbo put out a tweet saying that, it's amazing how we had 1 million people come out here and there was no violence. And of course, just like the inauguration, all that we're hearing right now is the numbers. We're hearing about the numbers. The crowd wasn't as big as they said it was. It's Crowdgate. Again, the crowd wasn't a million. No, there weren't a million people here. In spite of the fact that, yes, we're looking at the messaging that went along with something like this. And there is a messaging that goes with this. And they co-opted the name, the Million MAGA March, knowing that they're going out there to get the kind of government that they want. I said last week, you get the kind of government you deserve. You don't necessarily get the kind of government you want, you get the government that you deserve. But if you're not going to stand there and fight for a better government in the election that you want, then you don't deserve the government that you want. So good on these people for going to air their grievances and get out there, march for the president, show their support for the president, and show their opposition to an incoming Biden presidency that has the capability of bringing either prison sentences for people who supported President Trump or unfettered socialism coming in, or at least a hard progressive agenda. So good on them for coming out and trying to get the government that they want. Absolutely. I will never begrudge them for that. All right, let's keep going here. I got a couple that I archived because, ad blocker. From Business Insider, I wanted to point something out here before we actually got into the news here. And I archived this, so it's a snapshot of what happened at, this one's archived 20 hours ago, but it's a snapshot of what they looked at for the federal government at the time that they archived it. And they said 306 to 232, and that's a very symbolic number right now. Now, mind you, first off, it is not set in stone yet at this point, and I don't know, once again, if they're going to turn over 37 electoral votes. I'm pretty sure that at this point they put enough cogs into the machine and enough shields that they're not going to overturn the numbers here. But the fact of the matter is we're looking into it. But that number, 306 to 232, is symbolic because it is the reverse exactly of the Trump-Hillary race. So now they can come out and say, landslide! It's a landslide! Nobody wanted President Trump anymore. Meanwhile, looking down at the fact that Republicans have a 50-seat confirmed in the Senate, and as of right now, with just a couple of seats left to go, the House is one seat over what they need to control. But yes, we're still going to landslide for Biden. 79 million votes. Yeah, okay. But we'll see what happens off of this here. Let's get into the meat of what I wanted to talk about with this one here. The White House press secretary said more than 1 million attended a demonstration in support of Trump, but it was likely more likely thousands from Yelena Janova. Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary, exaggerated the number of people who gathered in Washington, D.C. on Saturday to protest President Donald Trump's loss to the president-elect Joe Biden. More than 1 million marchers for president at Real Donald Trump descended on the swamp in support, she wrote on Saturday morning. And there are the pictures. And I mean, there are a bunch of people there. There are absolutely a bunch of people. And I don't begrudge the fact that, yes, even if it is 800,000, 900,000 people, that is still a bunch of people coming out from all around the country to come out and say, no, we don't want your government. So it's incredible to see no matter what the numbers are. But of course, all we're going to hear about is the numbers, the numbers. This didn't turn out as well as President Trump thought it was going to. The numbers. It's crowd size. It's all over again. It's crowd size. It is unclear what the exact figure was, but it's likely more that thousands or tens of thousands of people showed up, according to news outlets reported from the scene, including the Washington Post and USA Today. Either way, the true figure appeared substantially smaller than what McEnany claimed. Demonstrators attended in support of Trump's baseless allegations that the president-elect Joe Biden's victory is illegitimate. Business Insider called the election for Biden on Friday, November 6th, but since then, Trump has refused to concede. Last week, Trump released a statement accusing Biden of rushing to falsely pose as the winner after dozens of news outlets projected the former vice president to have won the election. The simple fact of this election is far from over, Trump said in a statement disseminated to news outlets. Instead of acknowledging his loss, Trump turned his attention to ongoing lawsuits against multiple states. The Trump campaign is trying to undercut the integrity of mail-in voting with litigation against mail-in ballots. The president has baselessly alleged that voting by mail leads to widespread voter fraud. There's that word again. They love to say this word right here, widespread. It's always widespread voter fraud. But in reality, and I said because I answered somebody's Twitter question, I think it was Saturday, I answered somebody's question, where the guy came out and said, do you believe there's widespread voter fraud? I said, no, there's not widespread voter fraud. It's not widespread. They didn't have to do it all across the country. Now, am I positive that they went and dumped a bunch of extra ballots in California to pad the popular vote numbers? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They absolutely have, because if it turns out and it kicks back over and it goes back to Trump, well, they need to hold that popular vote narrative. If the lawsuits come out and come to fruition and they overturn this and Trump winds up getting 270, they have to hold on to that popular vote narrative. They have to. It's about the only thing that they have. But I don't think it's widespread. It, at best, targeted in a few key districts, in a few key states that would swing this over to Biden at the narrowest of margins, or even up to the 306, 232 to make it a landslide. And what do they need? Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. And they targeted those because those are the ones that Trump flipped from the deep, deep blue wall up in the Midwest. There's not widespread voter fraud. I will come out and say that. But there's voter fraud. Small, low scale, and targeted. So they don't, well, let me rephrase that. So they can try to hide it more easily. I was about to say so they don't get caught, but I got a feeling that they're about to get caught. And like I said, I don't know if there's going to be enough there to turn it over. But it would be nice if there was enough light shown on it that they never get to use this again. So we will see what happens off of this here. Trump made an appearance at the Washington, D.C. demonstrations on Saturday, driving by and waving out the window to cheering fans. Media could not be played because it's archived. Videos circulating on social media showed attendees wearing and waving MAGA merchandise. Most attendees caught on camera did not wear a mask. Some reporters said the members of the Proud Boys, a hate group, as designated by the SPLC, which is absolutely 100% objective and don't question what they have to say, attended. Some Proud Boys attendees wore shirts that said "Stand Back, Stand By," a reference to Trump's message to them during his first presidential debate with Biden. The gathering was called the Million MAGA March. As the event unfolded, the hashtag #MillionMoronMarch started trending on Twitter. So yes, this is absolutely objective. They're not trying to push an agenda by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. Just accept the fact that it was like 500 people were out there marching for Trump. Because Business Insider told you so. And don't look at the violence either. Because, of course, it was a political gathering, and there had to be violence. So, reading from Forbes, Million MAGA March ends in stabbing, arrests after Trump supporters and counter-protesters brawl. From Jemima McAvoy. Violence erupted in Washington, D.C. late Saturday night as attendees of the Million MAGA March, which brought thousands of President Trump supporters to the nation's capital to protest the results of the 2020 election, clashed with counter-protesters. Some more media here that I'm not going to be able to play because of archiving, and turn off your ad blocker, please. Attendees of the Million MAGA March were protesting the results of the election, which they say, echoing Trump's claims of widespread voter fraud, was stolen from the president. In the morning, Trump made an appearance at the rally, instructing his motorcade to pass through the cheering crowd. On the way to his Virginia golf club before the night's violence, the thousands of Trump supporters marched to the Supreme Court and listened to speeches from conservative figureheads. Yeah, we've got a little bit of that over here, too, by the way. Oh, that's all that they have off of this here. Well, there was some pretty intense stuff, and I've seen some of the video. I'm going to pull up some of the video for the show tonight so we can look at some of this here. But, of course, we've got to censor it and screen it out there because otherwise Wojcicki's going to... You're done. We're shutting your stream down because you're showing violent content here. But I saw a dude get curb stomped in some of the video that I've seen off of this. Apparently a guy got stabbed, which stabbed in the back. Yeah, that's a real honorable thing. But yes, of course, because you had a major march coming down like this, you had Antifa coming in and BLM. They were yelling about the fact that the Trump supporters were taking over BLM Plaza. This is our space. So yeah, we can't have nice things, and they just continue to come down and try to say that protesting is their exclusive right, not the right of anybody else. And everybody should be able to air their grievances with the government. That's why we have a First Amendment. It's not for just certain groups of people that support a certain ideology. It is there for everybody. But, what do we see here? Business Insider. The Proud Boys are a hate group. They're standing back and standing by. Oh my God. Oh. So, we will see what's happening off of this here. I'm sure we'll have some more news out of this as we move along here. Let's keep going. Biden called out for silence as leftists attack pro-Trump demonstrators in the nation's capital. This is from Daily Wire News. Democrat Joe Biden was called out on Saturday for his silence as left-wing extremists that journalists identified as being affiliated with Black Lives Matter and Antifa attacked pro-Trump demonstrators in Washington, D.C., who had gathered to show their support for President Trump. My God, that was wordy. Various public figures called out Biden after he repeatedly campaigned on unity and healing America. The Democratic Party tweeted on Saturday that Biden would restore the soul of the nation and bring us together. Most of the violence happened at night after the majority of Trump supporters had left the area after the Million MAGA March, which featured a brief appearance by the president. Later in the night, members of the purported right-wing group went after some of the groups that reportedly attacked innocent people. Senator Josh Hawley highlighted a video on Twitter of extremists attacking people who were eating dinner, writing, "When is Joe Biden, Mr. Unity, going to condemn this violence?" Let's see what that looked and sounded like. I got a hook on my desk. This was a lot easier when they played the video right in the article. They're there to protect the entrance of a hotel near the plaza.
Hey!
An anti-Trump crowd burns pro-Trump clothing in the streets of Washington, D.C.
Everybody get the fuck back! Get the fuck back!
D.C. police make some arrests and use pepper sprays. They push back the crowd. Antifa BLM continues to attack Trump supporters who are eating outside with fireworks in Washington, D.C. But don't worry, folks, it was a mostly peaceful protest here. Let's keep going. Political commentator Dana Lash highlighted a video on Twitter that showed a Trump supporter being attacked, sarcastically writing, "I'm sure Biden will denounce this when all the press ask him about it." Lash later added a subsequent tweet, "I'm sure the legacy press will rush to cover this, since many have bureaus nearby, and then immediately ask Biden and Harris to denounce. Let's all look for their stellar reporting." Trump supporter is pushed to the ground and robbed while not being allowed to walk out of the Black Lives Matter plaza as Antifa and Black Lives Matter surround him. You know what? Fucking age restricted. I don't care. I'm on DLive. I hate to say Owen Benjamin was right, but look at him. He's about to steal that bike.
Get the fuck out of here! You're a Black Lives Matter private motherfucker! What the fuck you got it right? Get the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of here! Get on your checklist, you fat, greedy motherfucker! Pick all that shit up!
Public strategist Doug Stafford wrote, "I want to hear Joe Biden and Kamala Harris condemn Antifa BLM criminals who assaulted and harassed peaceful demonstrators in D.C. today, including elderly and families. Of course they won't, and the media won't make them." Richard Grinnell wrote, "This is BLM and Antifa, and they are Joe Biden supporters. Biden hasn't condemned them. Look at the videos." Come on, man. I mean, but you support white supremacists, and you won't condemn them. Joe Concha wrote, "If unity is the goal, assuming Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will condemn the attacks on innocents that is ongoing in D.C., correct?" Trump's re-election campaign posted a video to Twitter showed other left-wing extremists enacting violence in various U.S. cities over the summer. Oh, sure, this one plays in here.
I'm telling you, they're not going to stop, and they should not.
These people are tearing up our lives.
Third straight night, Portland police declared a riot.
The vast majority of the protest has been peaceful.
Over the weekend, 59 officers injured and 47 people arrested.
New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announcing a proposal to cut $1 billion from the New York City Police Department.
We need to completely dismantle the Minneapolis.
Arrested.
New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announcing a proposal to cut $1 billion.
Yeah, that's that furniture store in Kenosha. I walked into that building.
$1 billion from the New York City Police Department.
We need to completely dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department.
This has been declared a riot.
Yep, there's the car lot right there. We walked through that. Those of you who walked along with the stream, we walked through that.
This has been declared a riot.
You won't be safe in Joe Biden's America.
I love how they put the Kamala cackle right at the end, too. That was great. That was amazing. But, I mean, in all seriousness, like I said, I saw this happen in town. And I wish that Trump would get up off of this. The fact that this is what's going to happen in Joe Biden's America. Because it's not. It's not what's going to happen in Joe Biden's America. They're only doing this right now because it is Trump in the White House offering to come out and help. And they don't want him to have the win. As soon as January 20th rolls around, 1 minute after noon on January 20th, when Biden is sworn in, the mayor of Kenosha, the governor of Wisconsin, the mayor of Portland, which she's already put some of her National Guard out there already because she thought it was over at that point, the mayor of Seattle, and Governor Inslee, Lightfoot, they're all in a second going to call in the National Guard and put an end to all of this. Because then it's Biden's America, and then we will have peace. The Antifa's not going to stop. All right, I got, I think, one more video here, maybe two. I got one more for sure here from Rachel Campos Duffy says, sad but a valuable lesson in socialism for those kids. The next lesson will be tomorrow when their parents show how the fake news media refuses to cover the vile, un-American actions of the Biden voters today. Remember, are your kids first and more? You are your kids' first and most important teacher. And this is a family with children in tears as they're followed and harassed by Antifa. Those are kids, you fucking animals. Those are kids. Anyway, that's what we're seeing up out of DC. Plenty of just mostly peaceful protesting going on here. And that's... At some point, we've got to put an end to some of this stuff. But it's going to continue to go. Speaking on election politics and what's going on with that, from CNN, America's closest allies acknowledge Biden victory even as Trump refuses to concede. From Kate Sullivan, Kevin Liptak, and Kylie Atwood. America's closest allies are calling to congratulate President-elect Biden even as President Trump refuses to concede the presidential election. Biden on Tuesday spoke with President Emmanuel Macron of France, Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany, Taoiseach, Prime Minister Michael Martin of Ireland, and Prime Minister Boris Johnson of the United Kingdom, according to Biden's transition team. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada said Monday that he had called Biden to congratulate him on his win. Trump has yet to publicly concede and continues to make baseless claims of election rigging. Yeah, those filthy riggers. And voter fraud. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and other Republican leaders in Congress are following the president's lead and have not acknowledged Biden as the winner. Because as of right now, he's not. Biden said on Tuesday that he thinks Trump's refusal to concede is an embarrassment and hurts the president's legacy. I know from my discussions with foreign leaders and thus far my hairy legs, and that they're hopeful that the United States and democratic institutions are viewed once again as being strong and enduring, Biden said. But I think that at the end of the day, that's the summer I learned what roaches were. It's all going to come to fruition on January 20th. And between now and then, my hope and expectation is that the American people do know, and I do understand that there's been a transition. And I'm going to make sure Corn Pop is the one that comes out and he's the one that pulls President Trump out of the White House. The president's refusal to accept his loss has stalled the required steps to transition government to Biden without a formal transition underway. Foreign leaders have called former diplomats from the Obama administration to get contact information for Biden's team. Doesn't this, and this is the big thing here, this is something that's been pointed out by numerous people over on the right side of the aisle, and even in the Libertarian, Federalist, and Independent side of the aisle as well, is the foreign leaders are calling diplomats to get contact with Joe Biden. Doesn't this violate the Logan Act, or even the Hatch Act? I mean, if that's what they're going to use, isn't this clearly what it is? And once again, the difference being, Hillary conceded. We had a clear winner. Yeah, he probably shouldn't have done it, General Flynn. He probably shouldn't have done it still, but at least we were going into a transition knowing who the president-elect was. We do not know who the president-elect is right now, no matter how much CNN tries to tell you that. Legally, by the Constitution, by the FEC. We have no idea who the president-elect is. So we'll see what's going on there. Trump's top diplomat, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, on Tuesday refused to accept the Biden victory and said there would be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. We watched that video. It was hilarious. But yes, all the foreign leaders are coming out and saying, "Congratulations, you won. That evil orange man is gone. Now we can walk all over you again." So we will see what happens out of that. Let's keep going. From Newsweek, CIA Director Gina Haspel should be fired for ignoring election software warnings, Trump lawyer says. From Jason Lamont. Sidney Powell, an attorney representing President Trump, said that CIA Director Gina Haspel should be fired for not objecting to the use of election software the president and his supporters claim, without providing evidence, because it's Newsweek and they have to put that in there, allowed President-elect Joe Biden to win through fraud. Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris were declared winners of the presidential election on November 7th after the AP, Fox News, and other television networks called Nevada and Pennsylvania in their favor to push them past the 270 electoral votes needed to claim victory. Trump has refused to concede, baselessly claiming they won the election through widespread voter fraud. Powell attempted to add credibility to Trump's assertions in an interview with Fox News on Sunday morning to discuss issues with Dominion voting systems software used in several of the key battleground states. Such claims have been widely debunked by independent fact-checkers. Snopes is your independent fact-checker. They're completely independent. But Powell has said that she has whistleblowers who will bring forward allegations that the software was used to delete millions of votes in favor for Trump. Why Gina Haspel is still there in the CIA is beyond my comprehension, Powell said, claiming that the CIA director had disregarded warnings about the software. She should be fired immediately. When pressed for evidence to support her claims, Powell said she was not going to reveal the information on television. No, because it's going through the courts right now. So, yeah, I would love to see the rest of this here and see what's happening with this. But of course, if it goes this way, and with the media coming out and saying, well, it's illegitimate, they're baseless claims, he's just chasing ghosts at this point. This is their legality to both go through and have another impeachment, which they'll have the numbers in the House to do, twice impeached, if he wins, by the way, keep in mind, twice impeached if he wins, and then go through the rest of the term saying, oh, well, this was just a stolen presidency. He stole this. And if another Supreme Court seat comes up, it's a stolen Supreme Court seat. Oh, my God. So we will see what happens off of this here. I'm fairly interested to see the rest of this here. I got another one from CNN. Samuel Alito's viral speech signals where conservative Supreme Court is headed. From Joan Biskupic, who is a legal analyst, which means that this is an op-ed. There's no secret to what the Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito wants for the law in America. He said it out loud on Thursday night in an ireful speech to the Conservative Federalist Society. Alito, who rarely speaks in public but has a way of going viral when he does, wants the High Court to move further and faster on right-wing anti-regulation interests, particularly for religion, in the time of COVID, in the face of the LGBTQ concerns, and when people simply, as he says, want to describe marriage as only between a man and a woman. Alito, a 70-year-old appointee of President W., has become an infuriated dissenter, even as his side of the bench has become fortified with appointments and will likely see greater majorities ahead. The pandemic has resulted in previously unimaginable restrictions on individual liberty, Alito asserted Thursday, highlighting the consequences for worship services, churches closed on Easter Sunday, synagogues closed for Passover and Yom Kippur. Alito said he was not minimizing the death toll of coronavirus nor commenting on the legality of pandemic-era rules. Yet he emphasized, we have never before seen restrictions as severe, extensive, and prolonged as those experienced for most of 2020. The COVID crisis has served as sort of a constitutional stress test, and in doing so, it has highlighted disturbing trends that were already present before the virus struck. He referred to agency regulation and a general dominance of lawmaking by executive fiat rather than legislation. Yeah, those are problems. And those are problems that are going to come up under President Harris. The gnashing ideological tone of Alito's speech in such a prominent forum was striking and immediately ignited social media commentary. Supreme Court justices have generally tried to recede from the hyper-partisanship throughout Washington today. Really? Really? The biggest panic right now is the fact that the most partisan member of the Supreme Court, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, passed away, giving Trump another Supreme Court seat. Hyper-partisanship, receding from it, bull fucking shit. In some respects, Alito's suggestion that government is infringing on Americans' freedoms echo the anti-mask, anti-restriction Trump talking points of the day. Moreover, conservatism on the Supreme Court is in ascendance, along with tougher scrutiny for government regulation. The Supreme Court is now dominated by a 6-3 conservative liberal majority following the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and succession of Amy Coney Barrett. It's a stolen seat! Her appointment marked the third for President Trump on a 9-member bench. Part of Alito's frustration may flow from the view that his conservative brethren have failed to be sufficiently vigilant. One of his fiercest dissenting opinions last session came in response to a majority opinion by fellow conservative Justice Neil Gorsuch, joined by Chief Justice John Roberts and 4 liberal justices, extending federal anti-discrimination laws to LGBTQ workers. He assaulted Gorsuch's legal reasoning, likening it to a private trip filing under a false flag, and decried the opinion's assertion of a modest move. If today's decision is humble, it is sobering to imagine what the court might do if it decided to be bold, Alito wrote. And Alito's absolutely right on this here, both with the freedoms being infringed upon and the fact that most of our legislation at this point is being done by executive fiat, by executive order, and by judicial order on top of it. Congress doesn't legislate anything anymore, which would be a good thing if it completely hamstrung the government. But now people take the cases to the Supreme Court to get the precedent. They want the precedent. They don't want to have a law. They don't want to have legislation. All they want to do is go there and get their way with a court that's friendly to them, or if they can't do that, have somebody sitting up there with a pen and a phone to bypass the legislature, if they don't want to play ball. The worst thing that's happened in this country, worse than federalizing everything, worse than all the top-down controls that are coming off of this, is the fact that the executive order power was expanded to the point that it is today. That Barack Obama could sit in the Oval Office and say, well, if Mitch McConnell doesn't want to play ball, well, then, I've got a pen and a phone, and I'll do it for him. So yes, absolutely Alito is right on this one, and good on him for bringing it up. Let's keep going. From the Hill. Elizabeth Warren slams Justice Alito over nakedly partisan speech. From Celine Castronuovo. Senator Elizabeth Warren on Friday condemned Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito over a speech he gave Thursday at the Federalist Society's annual meeting, which Warren has called a nakedly partisan address. Supreme Court justices aren't supposed to be political hacks, the former presidential candidate wrote on Twitter. This right-wing speech is nakedly partisan. My bill to #end the corruption now restores some integrity to our court by forcing justices to follow the ethics rules other federal judges follow, Warren added, referring to her proposed Anti-Corruption and Public Integrity Act aimed at preventing the corruption in politics and political partisanship in the justice system. Hey, now that we've lost control of the Supreme Court, now we're going to hold them accountable. Isn't that funny how that works? In Alito's Thursday remarks given via video, the justice claimed that the coronavirus pandemic has caused previously unimaginable restrictions on liberty, according to Reuters. Alito specifically pointed out the effect of the restrictions on religious events such as Easter Sunday and Yom Kippur. Rhode Island Senator Sheldon Whitehouse also took aim at Alito, tweeting Friday morning that the justice was on full-blown partisan crusade. And he linked to an article from fucking Slate, out of all places. It is generally considered the norm for Supreme Court justices and the federal judges to refrain from commenting on politically partisan issues, with many believing that the legal professionals have a responsibility to be fair educators of the law rather than political advocates. LGBTQ rights groups also criticized Alito after he said in Thursday's remarks, "You can't say that marriage is a union between one man and one woman. Until recently, that's what the vast majority of Americans thought. Now it's considered bigotry." Dude, I don't care who you marry or how you marry. Really, I don't. But yes, you are correct. If somebody does have that view, they're immediately labeled as a bigot. So, yeah, they're all piling on him at this point because he's not doing what they want. He's not in the minority anymore. He's actually getting more outspoken, which might be interesting to see what happens as more and more cases come to get reviewed at the bench. Let's keep going from Fox News. Sanders says he doesn't know anyone who wants to defund the police. Has he met AOC? From Yale Halon. Senator Bernie Sanders distanced himself from his progressive colleagues from the idea of defunding police departments in a wide-ranging interview on Sunday, claiming, "Nobody I know who's running for office talks about defunding the police." His comments drew immediate backlash on social media, with many on Twitter resurfacing past comments from squad members, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who rejected New York City's proposed $1 billion cut from its police department in June, arguing at the time that defunding the police means defunding police. Thank you, Drew Holden, for that one. It does not mean budget tricks or funny math. It does not mean moving school police officers from the NYPD budget to the Department of Education's budget so the exact same police remain in schools, the Congresswoman said in a statement. In the week since the election, moderates have pointed fingers at their colleagues who embraced the defund the police movement after Republicans weaponized the mantra to paint Democratic opponents as anti-cop and soft on crime. Progressives have argued that those liberal policies help to galvanize the party's core base and are popular among the general electorate, a sentiment that Sanders publicly echoed. On Sunday, however, the self-declared Democratic Socialist appeared to change his tune on the issue, telling CNN's State of the Union, after host Jake Tapper said that, "Nobody I know who's running for office actually wants to defund the police. What we talk about is making police officers accountable, making sure that police departments do what they can do best, figuring out how you deal with mental illness, how you deal with homelessness, whether those are, in fact, police responsibilities, making sure that the police officers are not killing innocent African Americans. That is not defund the police," Sanders said. And honestly, Sanders is not going to be one to defund the police. Now, I got autoplay going. I don't know where, but I got it going. Let's get that shut up. There we go. And for AOC, for the squad, for Ilhan Omar to come out and say, "We must get rid of the Minneapolis police because they do stupid shit like this." For them to come out and say that, I mean, that's just platitudes at this point. That's just trying to make sure that they continue to have the black vote forever, that they have the lockdown on it forever. That's just empty platitude at this point. But, I mean, Sanders is realist here. Sanders knows full well that in order to enact his socialist agenda, the full redistribution of wealth, he is going to need that police department to come and crack down on the people who are trying to hide their money, to try to hide their investments, the people who are trying to escape from the grip of socialism. You're going to need your police to come down and be faithful to you, to drag the proletariat in, to face tribute when they decide that they don't want to go in with the rest of it. They will need the police to do that. I know that the dream is the anarcho-communist society where everyone just participates. Well, that's not the way the real world works. And somebody is going to need to hold the gun to take care of dissenters. And Sanders knows that. But it's not about defund the police. It's about holding the police accountable. So, good on Sanders for that. At least coming out here and putting some logic behind everything else that comes out here. Top Biden transition team member wrote widely criticized op-ed advocating First Amendment crackdown from Ryan Saavedra. Richard Stengel, the Biden's transition team's team lead for the U.S. Agency for Global Media, wrote a widely criticized op-ed last year in the Washington Post advocating for a crackdown on the First Amendment, specifically criminalizing hate speech. The U.S. Agency for Global Media is America's government media empire that includes Voice for America, the Middle East Broadcasting Networks, and Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, the New York Post reported. Stengel wrote the controversial op-ed titled Why America Needs a Hate Speech Law late last year. In the op-ed, Stengel argued that Russia allegedly interfering in the 2016 presidential election and the burning of a Quran were examples of how the First Amendment protected speech too much. Yeah, this is the guy that gets drawn out and tarred and feathered in the square. All speech is not equal, Stengel claimed, and where truth cannot drive out lies, we must add new guardrails. I'm all for protecting thought that we hate, but not speech that incites hate. It undermines the very values of a fair marketplace of ideas that the First Amendment is designed to protect. Stengel said that when he was a journalist, that he loved the idea of free speech, but now that he's a diplomat, now that he's in the government, and widely available to be criticized by the unwashed masses, that now, he doesn't like free speech anymore. So when it was protecting him, he loved it. But now that he can use it to crack down on other people, he hates free speech. But as a government official traveling around the world championing the virtues of free speech, I came to see how our First Amendment standard is an outlier. Even the most sophisticated Arab diplomats that I dealt with did not understand why the First Amendment allows someone to burn a Koran. Why, they asked me, why would you ever want to protect that, he wrote. It's a fair question. Yes, the First Amendment protects the thought that we hate, but it should not protect the hateful speech that can cause violence by one group against another in an age when everyone has a megaphone. That seems like a design flaw. Oh, you poor, poor, poor dumb bastard. That you actually believe the things that you say here. And once you've come in, and you are the most dangerous one. Because you've seen what free speech can do, and to help, it helped you advance your career. And now that you're in the government, you want to crack down on this. That you are the exact people that the First Amendment was designed to protect against. You are the exact kind of person that the founders had in mind when they said, Congress shall pass no law. You're the exact person that they were thinking of when they put that in mind. So, yes, the Biden transition team wants to crack down on your speech, which is why, as I've said, I am preparing just in case if I've got to switch and do nothing but gaming content. And I hope you guys will stick around for that, but I've got a feeling that once Harris ascends to the presidency and they go back and they find my dissent over on my past YouTube channel, I'm going to fucking prison. All right, let's keep going here. From CNBC, Trump says coronavirus vaccine won't be delivered to New York right away. I thought I put this over here. Let's actually listen to this first. Where are my earphones? There they are. And then we'll read what CNBC has to say. Ears on. Ready to go.
They're all ready, waiting for that final approval. As soon as April, the vaccine will be available to the entire general population, with the exception of places like New York State, where, for political reasons, the governor decided to say, and I don't think it's good politically, I think it's very bad from a health standpoint, but he wants to take his time with the vaccine. He doesn't trust where the vaccine's coming from. These are coming from the greatest companies anywhere in the world, greatest labs in the world. But he doesn't trust the fact that it's this White House, this administration. So we won't be delivering it to New York until we have authorization to do so. And that pains me to say that. This is a very successful, amazing vaccine at 90% and more. But so the Governor Cuomo, will have to let us know when he's ready for it. Otherwise, we can't be delivering it to a state that won't be giving it to its people immediately. And I know the people of New York very well. I know they want it. So the governor will let us know when he's ready. He's had some very bad editorials recently about this statement and what's happened with respect to nursing homes and his handling of nursing homes. And I hope he doesn't handle this as badly as he's handled the nursing homes. But we're ready to provide it as soon as they let us know that they'll actually use it. And again, it's a very safe and a great vaccine.
And, I mean, he's absolutely right on the money of this here, because Cuomo was up there right off saying, well, we're not going to use the vaccine here in our state here, as long as it's coming out under the Trump administration. I mean, he's going to have a disastrous rollout out here, and we're just not going to take it over here. But we'll wait for the one that comes out when Biden's president, you know? All right? Yeah, that's what we're going to do over here. And I love the thought. I mean, they call this guy dumb. And sometimes I think they're right. But they call the president dumb. And yet, they think that he's back there in an evil mastermind fashion. From what Cuomo is saying here, I actually believe that Cuomo thinks that Trump was the one that was back there mixing up chemicals to make this vaccine so it can get it out there to the people. He wasn't. He wasn't in the lab. He wasn't wearing the white lab coat. He was standing in the Oval Office with his phone, tweeting like an idiot. And they're going after companies that are hugely supportive to Democrats too, because they dared to release this while Trump was still the president. Pfizer, BioNTech. I mean, BioNTech is German. You think they have any love for a Republican president? No, you fucking idiots. Moderna is from Massachusetts. You think they have any love for a Republican president? No. But it's still kind of funny. Yeah, nope. Cuomo will tell us when he's ready for it, and then we'll send it up there after he says it's okay. Let's see what CNBC had to say about that. Trump says coronavirus vaccine won't be delivered to New York right away because, of course, that's how they're going to take that. From Berkeley Loveless and Noah Higgins Dunn. President Trump on Friday said the U.S. government would not deliver a coronavirus vaccine to New York if and when one is available. That's not what he said. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo will have to let us know when he's ready for it, because otherwise we can't be delivering to a state that won't be giving it to its people immediately, Trump said during a press conference from the White House Rose Garden. He doesn't trust where the vaccine is coming from, Trump added. These are coming from the greatest companies, the best companies, the most wonderful companies in the world that did this under me, your favorite president. Greatest labs, best labs in the world, but he doesn't trust the fact that it's this White House, this administration, so we won't be delivering it to New York until we have the authorization to do so. And that pains me to say that. On MSNBC, because of course it was MSNBC, shortly after Trump's comments, Cuomo said, "None of what Trump said is true. Surprise, surprise. I've been an outspoken opponent of many of Trump's policies over the last 4 years," he said, adding that Trump lost to New York in the presidential election by a huge margin, and that the state's prosecutors are also investigating the president for tax fraud. "So he has issues with New York, and he likes to point to New York," Cuomo said. "But this is his issue. It's his credibility issue, you know? It's the fear that he politicized the health process of this nation, which is a well-founded fear." Shortly after Trump's comments, New York Attorney General Letitia James issued a statement threatening to sue Trump if a vaccine is not sent to the state once available. This is nothing more than a vindictive behavior by a lame duck president trying to extract vengeance on those who oppose his politics, James said. Dude, Cuomo said it was dangerous, and it was dangerous to get released that quickly. He is on record saying that. Also, in response to Trump, a senior advisor to Cuomo said on Twitter that the governor is fighting to ensure the communities hit hardest by COVID get the vaccine. Trump has failed with his pandemic response, lied to Americans about how bad it was when he knew otherwise, and was fired by voters for his incompetence. Rich as a party said, well, we will see what happens once all the dust settles and all the lawsuits come out. And once again, I don't think that he's going to turn it over enough to win, but I do want to see what the outcomes of these lawsuits are. and what the outcomes of the investigations are. Here's a ridiculous question given the time frame of everything else that comes off of this. And this comes from a little thought experiment that Seawall, friend of the show, and I were having about things that happened during Barack Obama's presidency. And this was in 2018 when we were well deeply into the Trump presidency. But he tried to tell me that it would change everything if it came out that Barack Obama actually wasn't a citizen. And I said, everything's done. I mean, how does that change? What happens if we go back and find out that a previous president was elected by fraudulent means? I mean, what does that do to the presidency after he's inaugurated? I know what it would do before the inauguration, obviously. It would overturn or it would go back to state delegation. We have constitutional provisions for that. But what would happen, just on a thought experiment, if they found out? If Dominion came out and got found out that they were switching the ballots over there and that Biden actually wasn't the president. I mean, the mainstream media would ignore it, obviously, but constitutionally, what would happen if something like that were to happen? Or if they did find out that Barack was not an American citizen, if he came out and said, you know what, it's been 12 years, I'm just going to give the American people the middle finger and say, hey, well, guess what? Hillary was right. I was not born in America. I was born in Kenya. What would happen by that after the fact? That's an interesting thought experiment to have. We can't do that right now because we've got just a couple more here to do. Then we're going to do something that restores my faith in humanity and head on out of here. But that is an interesting thought experiment to have. All right, moving on down to Newsmax, who has been lighting up and firing up throughout the past few weeks. Stacey Abrams expected to run again for Georgia governor. Well, yeah, now that they know how to manipulate Georgia. From Torrin Dyson. Stacey Abrams will likely run again for governor in Georgia just 2 years after losing the same race 2 years ago, according to the Washington Examiner. Democratic National Committee member Wendy Davis, a member of the executive committee of the Georgia Democratic Party, said it is a secret to no one Abrams wants to take another shot at the top seat in Georgia. I mean, I thought she already was the governor of Georgia. Stacey Abrams intends to run for governor again, Davis told the Daily Beast. Democrats have said Abrams played a key role in helping Joe Biden potentially sneak victory out of Georgia. She also has credited with pushing to force the runoff races for the state's 2 Senate seats between Democratic Reverend Raphael Warnock and Senator Kelly Loeffler, and Senator David Perdue and Democrat Jon Ossoff. Leader Abrams has made no decisions about her political future and is solely focused on electing Jon Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock on January 5th, the representative said. But yes, she's going to go back and she's going to run for the governor again. Well, in all honesty, especially if they don't close the loophole that Andrew Yang has somehow mysteriously found here, I mean, all the people are going to come running out of California to go move to Georgia to vote for Stacey Abrams and then move back out to California, bust up the state, bust up some of the infrastructure, and then get the fuck back out of there. So it'll be a nice infrastructure mess if Abrams does come back out to be the governess, but we'll see what happens there. From the Detroit News, Governor Whitmer closing high schools, colleges, in-person dining, casinos, and movie theaters. From Craig Mauger. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer announced wide-ranging new restrictions limiting gatherings at high schools, colleges, and restaurants Sunday night to combat what she described as the worst moment yet in the COVID-19 pandemic. The new policies will temporarily halt in-person instruction at high schools and colleges, indoor dine-in services at restaurants and bars, and high school athletics, as well as close some businesses, including movie theaters, bowling alleys, and casinos. The restrictions imposed through a Michigan Department of Health and Human Services order will take effect Wednesday and be in place until the end of December 8th. Under the order, indoor residential gatherings will be limited to 2 households at any one time. The situation has never been more dire, Whitmer said on Sunday. We are at the precipice and we need to take some action. The state's public health code allows Michigan Health Department to prohibit the gatherings of people for any purpose and to establish procedures to ensure the constitution of essential public health services and enforcement of health laws. The governor announced the new order at a Sunday night press conference, a rare weekend briefing that came 5 days after Whitmer told reporters she was exploring the next steps her administration would take against COVID-19 as the virus surges here. Just let it rip through the rest of the population already at this point here. And of course, Fauci's coming out. Do I have that one up here? Yeah, I do. Fauci's coming out and saying that we're still going to need it after everybody's immune. So, yep, they're shutting her all down. Let's keep going. From Click on Detroit, here are 14 changes going into effect under Michigan's new COVID-19 restrictions. Here are 14 major changes. This is from, I have no author given. Oh, I'm sorry, I do. Derek Hutchinson, senior web producer. Here are 14 major changes. High school classes must now be conducted remotely. College classes must now be conducted remotely. Work must be done remotely, unless the job absolutely has to be done in person. Does that mean I have to commute to here? Does that mean I have to telecommute from in there, in my bedroom, to my office, to work remotely? Oh wait, I don't live in Michigan. Haha. Indoor dining is no longer allowed at bars or restaurants. Organized sports are no longer permitted, with the exception of professional sports and a select number of NCAA sports. So the things that are going to bring us money, we'll let those happen. Group fitness classes are no longer allowed. Theaters and movie theaters must close. Stadiums and arenas must close. Bowling alleys will be closed. Skating rinks will be closed. Indoor water parks will be closed. Bingo halls will be closed. Casinos, you guessed it, will be closed. Arcades will be closed. Those are the new orders coming out of Gretchen Whitmer. If you come over to this side of the pond, I know a little real estate agent. If you want to get out of Tyrant Whitmer's domain. So yes, enjoy that over there. Speaking from Fauci. From the New York Post. Social distancing, masks still necessary after getting COVID-19 vaccine, Fauci. From Jackie Salo. Dr. Anthony Fauci said Sunday that it will still be necessary to social distance, wear masks, and take other COVID-19 precautions after a vaccine becomes available to Americans. I would recommend people to not abandon all public health measures just because you've been vaccinated, Fauci told CNN anchor Jake Tapper on State of the Union. Because even though for the general population it might be 90 to 95% effective, you don't necessarily know how effective it is. The director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases added that once he receives a vaccine, he still won't feel comfortable completely letting down his guard. I can feel more relaxed in essentially not having the stringency that we have right now, but I think abandoning it completely would not be a good idea, Fauci said. So yes, you get vaccinated and you still have to socially distance and wear the mask. It's not about the virus anymore. It is control. It's always been control. All right. That's it for the news for the day here. I'm so sick of talking about COVID-19 and the election. I hope the lawsuits come through and we actually get something coming out of this here in one direction or the other at this point. I just want to see the toys get broken. I don't care who wins the election at this point either way. They both fucking suck. But let's see the toys get broken so we can actually put people in that are by the people for the people. But the last thing that we do on Monday is something that restores my faith in humanity. And this past weekend, NASA came together with the private market once again to put more people up into space. So reading now from Fox News, NASA makes historic SpaceX Crew Dragon launch. From James Rogers. NASA has made its first operational SpaceX Crew Dragon launch, marking an important milestone for the space program. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket carrying the Crew Dragon spacecraft lifted off from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida at 7:27 Eastern Time Sunday. Shortly after the launch, the first stage booster rocket separated from Crew Dragon. It touched down on a drone ship floating on the Atlantic Ocean 10 minutes after liftoff. The Crew Dragon spacecraft, which was named Resilience by the crew, will reach the International Space Station around 11 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday. Resilience rises, tweeted the NASA staff at liftoff. What's happening here? Go back. Go back, I was reading that. Apparently I tried to shut down the autoplay that was going, and all of a sudden now it gave me the new article. Alright. The 6-month mission is the first crew rotation flight on a U.S. commercial spacecraft. Yeah, no, I don't care if you've got news for me. A great launch, tweeted President Donald Trump. NASA was a closed-up disaster. God damn it. NASA was a closed-up disaster when we took over. Now it is again the hottest, most advanced space center in the world. By far, the best. From me, your favorite president. President-elect Joe Biden tweeted his congratulations to NASA and SpaceX following the launch. It's a testament to the power of hairy legs and what we can accomplish by harnessing our innovation, ingenuity, and corn pop, he wrote. I'll join all Americans in learning what roaches are and the people of Japan and wishing the astronauts and Godspeed on their journey. The Crew 1 mission is transporting NASA astronauts Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, and Shannon Walker and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Soichi Noguchi to the International Space Station aboard the Crew Dragon vehicle. It follows a successful Demo 2 mission earlier this year. So, the U.S. is, at this point, back to putting people into space, and the private industry has done amazing things with this as well. The fact that this is a SpaceX thing, that this is an Elon Musk thing, yes, it has to go through the government. I'm not sure why. But as of this point, the government has taken the monopoly on going to space. But the fact that we're going again, that we're exploring, we're trying to get off this rock and see what the rest of the world, what rest of the universe looks like. And yes, I know that a few people in my audience think that we're on a flat Earth and there's no such thing as space. But you know what? I don't believe that. I've seen the photos, I've seen the satellite photos, and I've seen what it looks like from up there. And hopefully one day I'll get up there myself to go and see what it looks like. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but hopefully one day it will. But that is going to be it for the day. I'm going to sign off of here, and then I'm going to start working on the RedNet show. I'm looking forward to that here. I got a confirmation text earlier on in the week, and we will be confirming to have our wonderful co-host back, so got a bunch of stuff to talk about. I'm going to get some more video from this Million Mega March here, so we'll talk a bit about that and what happened there. I'll be adding some new music to Contemporary in the rotation and giving a deep, deep thanks to Mr. Behavior for offering up some of his instrumentals. So looking forward to that. I'm going to do some of that work here today too. So we've got some changes coming, but they're going to be good changes, and we hope that we will see you later on here today for the RedNet show. Otherwise, I will be back here tomorrow for more Contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.